Hey YouTube, welcome back to the BladesIIB shop. We're going to dig into a little product review today and work on a project and actually put this product we're going to review into operation. So I picked up a 5C Collet Stop from Edge Technologies. So we're going to open this up, see what it looks like, see how it feels, and then I've got a little project that I need to do. The reason I purchased this is for making the spacers that I put on my knives. And I need to go through and make 54 of these spacers right now, so I'm really hoping that this Collet Stop is going to speed up my process as I turn those around and face them off to the proper width that I need. We'll give this thing a try and see how it works. If you're new to the channel, if this is the first BladesIIB video you found, I encourage you to go in here and check out some of the other videos on machining, welding, Fusion 360, knife making, some other product reviews, just everything we have going on here in the BladesIIB shop. If you like the channel, hey, I'd sure appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and come back and watch some more videos in the future. If you like this video, hey, help out the YouTube algorithm, drop a like, drop a comment in there, and let other folks know to come and check this video out. For my subscribers, thanks as always for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this video and love a comment or a like from you as well. Would love to hear from you. All right, let's go ahead, turn the camera around. Let's open this up, unpackage it, and then let's take a look at these spacers that we're going to make. And then we're going to jump on the lathe and give this thing a try. Let's take a look. Alright, well, let's take a look at this piece from Edge Technologies. I actually picked this up from Amazon. You can see we've got model number 45000, collet size 5C. It's the only collet stop I saw that they actually made. But they did send a catalog when this showed up, and they make quite a few other nice pieces. They make some nice vise stops. They make some parallel holders. So some other kind of unique things that they make. Some good handy looking tools, but this is the only part that I have from them. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Alright, just a couple staples holding it, so it wasn't too hard to open that blister pack. Alright, well, that looks pretty good. Let me go find an Allen wrench so that I'll be able to loosen that up for adjustment. Alright, well, this piece looks pretty good, and we've got easy adjustment here. You can move that in and out wherever you need to, and it doesn't have a flat spot, so the way that collar locks on there, it's not going to mark up the piece and cause a problem there. And you also have the ability to, I guess, remove that end piece. I think, yeah, it looks like that's actually only on this small one, so maybe in case that piece gets bent, you're able to take that out, move it around. So none of these other ones have an adjustment on that end piece there. Alright, so the one that I'm looking for, here are the little spacers that I'm going to machine. So I machine these out of, what is it, 17/64 titanium is what I start with, and I usually turn them down to 1/4 inch. This is an old one, so this one's not quite turned down to 1/4 inch, so won't fit in a 1/4 inch collet, but that is what I'll be doing for these ones that we're going to make today. Alright, so this is small enough that it's going to fit inside that 1/4 inch collet and not push on my piece. So let me get this traded out here. Alright, now let's see how this is going to work into the back side of my collet. Alright, well, that went in there without any trouble. Okay, but that is not coming through quite far enough to come all the way out the front of that collet. That's actually going to hit right there, and I think, yeah, that is not going to give me quite enough for what I need. So let's see what my other options are here. Alright, so it looks like I actually do want this stop, and that is still not going to go inside my hole. So that's still going to work for me. And that one's going to come through far enough. That didn't work. Alright, right about there should leave enough sticking out for me. Alright, simple enough. Let me just go make sure this still threads into the collet like it is supposed to. It looks like it's down there far enough below the keyway. I'm also just going to go double check. Let's go make sure we get that tightened in there just a little bit. I'm not looking for that to be super tight, but I'm just going to grab a wrench just to make sure we get that snugged up. So let me do that real quick. All right, a 7/8 wrench fits on there fine. Again, I'm not looking for super tight, just enough. I know it's not going to come rattling out of there. All right, so we've got that locked in. Let's drop this in the lathe and let's see how that looks inside the collet. All right, I've got my 1/4-inch collet in there right now. Let's get that one out of there. And looks like the key is right up on top. All right, no problem. That slid past the keyway. And if I had just made these spacers, I'd have one clean side and I'd have one non-clean side. Push that up against the stop, and there we go. Be able to set my DRO, face those all off to the same length, put a bevel on there, change them out, and I should be able to get good repeatability on that. So far, the unboxing looks like this is everything that I'm going to need. I guess my next step is I need to go ahead and make some of these spacers, get them parted off to my rough length, and then we'll come back. We'll actually end up putting this collet stop back into the 1/4-inch collet, and then we'll check out our repeatability as we face some of these off to length. But I'll go ahead and we'll do some quick video on making some of these spacers as well. We'll get a little bit of video on that. Then we'll come back and truly check out the repeatability on this collet stop. But so far I'm pretty impressed. Comes with a good variety of stop pins to put in there. Seems like it's a pretty versatile tool. I think the price on it was pretty reasonable. If I remember right, it was like $29.99. So I'm pretty happy with what I paid for this thing so far. Let's see how it actually performs under pressure. But right now, I'm impressed. I'm happy. All right, here's a little better look at this collet stop here before we jump into the rest of the video. Nice finish on it. Aluminum is what it's made out of. Nice little lock in there, and that just threads into the back of, I'm pretty sure all 5C collets or any standard 5C collet's always going to have that internal thread. So it's going to thread into the back of any of them. And again, it seems to fit in there nice. It's just enough of a shoulder that it locks on there. Still had room for that keyway to get by. Pretty simple, and comes with enough stop rods to give it some good versatility. And here's a look at these spacers that we're gonna go make. These are made out of some titanium. So I just take a rough machine cut off the outside with kind of a fast feed. Go back and double check. I think it's maybe 20 thou per revolution is what I'm feeding, 21, 22 thou per revolution. I'll check that out when I go set it up to make these cuts. But that's where I'm getting that rough finish on the outside of those, and then just drill a 1/8 hole in the middle of those. And then we're gonna part them off, and then after that, it's just face them to length. So the nice thing with this collet stop is I don't surface grind all of my blades to, I don't have an exact thickness that I'm going for. It just kind of depends on the blade stock that I have. So I'll typically end up with 5 or 10 or however many blades I made at one time. I'll typically end up with those all the same thickness. So once I have them, I can, hopefully knock out 15 or 25 spacers all the same thickness. But then if I had a little bit different blade stock, I may have another set that's going to be, 3, 4, 5 thou difference. And once I lock this in place, I shouldn't have to move the rod. All I would have to do is adjust my DRO by 5 thou and make my next set of spacers 5 thou thicker, thinner, whatever the case may be. So should be pretty good. Once I have this locked in the collet, I really shouldn't have to pull it out to adjust the bolt on there, and I should have enough versatility that I can, again, make 15, even 20 thou differences in thicknesses based on where I position that the first time. So I think this is gonna save me a ton of time. Let's go ahead and pull out my bar stock for this, and let's start making some raw spacers, and then we'll get some of them faced off the length. And we're making the little spacers in the lathe today. So in order to make those, I'm using 4 different tools. Tool number 1, 2, 3, and 4 as I've got them lined up there. And I'm actually using the tool offsets in my DRO to keep track of all those tools, kind of build in my process here. sort of wrote out my little formula. So tool number 1, we're gonna face, and I'm gonna set my DRO at 0. Tool number 2, I put in there, and I know I'm gonna set it for a 15th thou deep cut. We're gonna turn the outside diameter. Gonna put in tool number 3, put a quick bevel on the end of it, and then I'm gonna center drill it, drill my 1/8 hole in there, about 1/4 of an inch deep, and then I'm gonna put on tool number 4, my parting tool, and then I'm gonna part it off. Running at the same speed the whole time. I am running this at 1200 RPM for this 17/64, or this basically 1/4 inch titanium. And like I say, we'll zoom in and pull that piece out of there. So I've made a couple already to test my formula. So I've been running with this about 1/2 inch out of the chuck. So we'll pull this piece about 1/2 inch out of the collet chuck, and then we'll run through the operation. I'll make sure that got some video of it turning and machining, and I'll record as I'm changing my tools out and setting that tool offset and running the DRO as well. So let's go ahead and knock one of these out, see what it looks like, and then we will come back after we've got them made, and then we will test out that 5C collet stop, and then we'll be facing all these off to length afterwards. First, we got to make some before we can face them off to the right length. All right, we'll get this pulled out to 1/2 inch. That's how much I need in order to make one of these. I used to make these 3 at a time and have it pulled out farther, but then I've got to use the center to be able to part it off. It takes longer, so I think it's faster if I just make these one at a time and knock them out. So we've got the piece in the chuck pulled out 1/2 inch. So let me come over here on the DRO, and right now you can see tools is turned on because I've already been using the tool offsets. But if I didn't have that turned on, I would hit clear, and this is my tool offsets button. So first you go into tool offsets, and programming them, I would hit enter my tool number, and I would go through and set up the offsets. I already have that done. So now I just want to run my tool offsets. So I'm going to get next to go into run tool offsets, hit enter, and first I'm going to go with tool number 1. Hit enter, so now that's going to be set up for me. We'll put tool number 1 in there. Now that tools is already on, next time I need to change a tool, I'm just going to go down here to this next tool, and I'll put in tool number 2 and do that. I don't have to hit this offsets and go and hit the run every time. But let's get back to tool number 1, since that's what we're going to use first. All right, tool number 1, that's my facing tool right here. Get that in place. And we're just gonna go and touch off, get our 0 point. That's where I'll 0 the DRO. So once I touch that off for facing, that's where I'll push 0, and that'll kind of start. All the other tool offsets will run from there. All right, so I'm gonna go in here. Let's take about 10th thou, probably end up taking maybe another 5 thou cut afterwards. Make sure I get rid of the hole that's in there, and then that's where our 0 will be set for the rest of the tools. So that's it, tool number 1 is done already. So now that tool number 1 is done, I'm gonna go set tool number 2, enter. And then I'm gonna grab tool number 2, this turning tool. We'll get that on there. And for tool number 2, I'm just gonna wind that in. And I know that I wanna go to 15 thou is my depth of cut, in order to end up at 1/4 inch on there. And again, I'm running a really coarse feed, 22 thou per revolution to give that rough finish on the outside. So let's knock off this turning cut here. Does not take long at all for that cut. All right, there's a good shot. You can see how rough that finish is on there. That's that 22 thou per revolution. Gives it kind of that spirally look. I think it makes a nice looking spacer for the knives. So that's it. In one shot, we've turned that down to diameter. We got that down to 1/4 inch. So we pull off tool number 2. Set this for tool number 3. We're gonna grab tool number 3, which is just to put a quick bevel on there, drop that in place. And again, I'm just gonna back that off until, or actually wind that in just a little bit. until I have that set to 0, and then I'm going to wind over, and I'm just going to go in. It's going to go to 0, and I'm going to go in 10 thou, and that's what I'm going to put on there for that bevel, just for some consistency on the bevels. So it's going to just go to plus 10, and that will be it. So again, really quick cut to put this little bevel on here. And that's it. You can just see he pulled a little chip off of there as we cut that bevel. Doesn't take but a second. So now we've got tool number 3 off of there. Now we're going to put our hole in. Get this center drill, and I'm just going to spot the end of it to make sure that my drill bit lines up and starts out clean. And I'm just going 1/4 of an inch deep, just using the lines on the quill on here on my tailstock. That's accurate enough to get the hole in there that I need. Just makes it so that when I part it off, I can face it off again clean with just a couple of cuts. So kind of have just the 1/4 inch depth on here has been working out perfect for me, and makes it a lot easier than trying to put a dial or anything. Doesn't have to be that accurate. Alright, quickly punch that 1/8 inch hole in there. It's a carbide drill bit, and I find if I use those carbide drill bits, it's really a nice size. I don't have to drill and ream. Get just a good size with that. Gonna go ahead and put a quick bevel on that before I part it off while it's easy to grab onto. And last step here, I need to get to tool number 4. And tool number 4 is going to be this parting tool. We'll drop that in place. And then for the parting tool, I know I need to go over to 272. And that's where I'm looking to part that off. So let's go ahead and knock that out. All right, I'm parting these off at the same speed, 1200 RPM. You can see I actually machined a little further than I wanted to, so I'll be facing a little bit extra off of this one. But normally I've got this in there to catch my piece when it comes, but I'm gonna go ahead and get a nice shot of the camera with this parting off on this one. And I think this will be a little bit better camera angle than what the other camera's got. So let's take a look at parting this titanium off at 1200 RPM. And there it is. There's the whole operation before we're going to turn this around and face these to length on the other side with our new 5C Collet Stop. So I'm making a total of 51 of these right now. I've got about 5 done, so I only have about 45 or so more to go. And then we'll come back and check out that Collet Stop. Stay tuned. We're going to see if we can do one here in real time. I've made about 30 of them so far. I think I've got it down to somewhere between 2 minutes and 40 seconds and 3 minutes, so trying to stay under 3 minutes a piece on these. So let's see what I can do in real time here on the video. I've got it zoomed out. You should be able to see all the parts going on. So I just finished one, pieces put in there, and yeah, let's see what kind of time we can put out on this. All right, I also figured out that I don't need to do the center drill, so I'm just drilling with this carbide, and that seems to work fine. We'll see what that was for time on the video, and we'll go ahead and knock out one more here too. Might speed this one up. We'll do a time comparison, see how we do on an average here. There's a couple more done. We'll see how our time's looking on those. But I'll just keep on knocking out some more. See you when I'm done. And they're done. Got 15, 30, 45, 51. Went ahead and made 3 extra just in case something happened. But I think from a consistency standpoint, we got a nice even height on those. They all parted off nice and clean. So I think it should be a good test for us now as we put those back in the 1/4" collet with that 5C collet stop, and let's see how consistent I can face these off to the exact width that I need to make these spacers for that knife. So let's go ahead and get that collet stop set up in the 1/4" collet and knock a few of these out and see how it does for repeatability. All right, so I actually thought that this stop rod was going to work for me, and it still would for these little bushings. It's pointy enough that it gets on there. These can't slip over top, so this would actually work for a stop for these. But the other job that I need to do in this 1/4" collet is I need to shorten these bushings. They're actually about half the width. They're almost going to be the same as what those little spacers are, and those are going to fit right over top of this stop rod, so that is not going to work to stop those. So I need to go in there and modify this other stop rod. I need to turn this little shoulder down on here so that it will go further and come out the front of that 1/4" collet to give me the depth that I need. So I'm gonna go ahead, it's about 5/16 outside diameter, 310. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this in a collet, and we're just gonna turn this down. This step on here is right at 1/4", so I guess that's what fits inside of all of these collets. So we're gonna turn that down to 1/4" to make sure that we can get that
inside and get that to come through. I'll probably turn it down just a little under 1/4 inch to make sure that it's not going to catch, do a false grab on the back side of my collet. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll turn, this is 240 up here at the front. I'll probably turn this to about 245 or so right here, just to make sure that I can use this stop rod for these jobs that we need to do inside here. So quick modification on the part, but again, I don't think that's a big deal. Definitely will give it more versatility for what I need. Let's go ahead and turn this down.
So I'm actually double checking this rod against the 1/4 inch collet, and it only comes, I mean, it's only 260 thou from coming out the front. So I don't need to turn back that big long shoulder like what it was on the other one. I just basically need to take this same 240 thou diameter, make sure I've got clearance inside the collet, and I just need to come back an extra 260 thou. That's all I need to do. So maybe different collets have different lengths inside, I don't know, but I just need to come back 260 thou and make sure that this will come further out. And we should be able to get everything we need out of this stop rod. Just put that in a 5/16 collet. Touch off on my DRO there. Don't need to go any extra because 260's flush with the front, and you know, really you can't even have anything sticking out that far. So we'll zero off where we need to go to back there. Yeah, we got a little bit of run out going on there, but that's all right. So yeah, interesting how much run out there is on, they're turned down pieces on these, but it's got 10 thou clearance inside the collet, so a little bit of run out isn't going to cause any problems. Let me just round off that back edge a little bit. I'm not going to be able to do it with that tool, unless pull that out a little farther. And there we go, put a little chamfer on that. Now that should work for us inside here. And it does. Now we're coming out pretty much just flush with the end. So we're going to be able to do any length that we need to inside there at that 1/4 inch diameter. Going to have a nice flat surface to go up against for any size we have. So that'll work just fine. Alright, let's go ahead and get this set up, start facing off some parts. Alright, I want to make sure I got that in there snug. I've got my piece set up. I've got about 14 thou difference between the couple of thicknesses I need to hit, so I need to make sure I leave enough sticking out for even the thinner ones. So I think that should give us what we need there. Let's lock that in place. Alright, I want to kind of make sure I'm consistent with how tight I put that in there. And I want to change out my tool because I want to be able to face those and then put a little chamfer on the outer edge at the same time. So I want to go ahead and use this facing tool to do that rather than the one that I have on there. And that way I can just knock out both operations with the same tool. I think that'll speed things up a little bit. So let me change that out of the tool holder and get that set on center height. Well, those were nice and tight. Alright, so first I'm just going to take a skim off of the front of this piece, and then we'll measure it and we'll see where that is giving us for a thickness. I'll zero the DRO when I take that cut, and that way we can come in and just take, you know, more or less based off the DRO reading. We'll get the first one to width, and then we'll go in there and check our repeatability.
While I've got it in there, I will also leave the Z set, and I'll just go past my piece, probably 100 thou or so, and then I'll turn in on the diameter till I get just that 10 thou chamfer, same as we have on the other side, and I'll set my radius so that way I can go to the same 2 spots on the DRO every time, get a similar chamfer. Let's see what we got going on here. So right now we are looking at a width of 177, which, well, that is exactly the width I need for my thicker one. I guess I was at 190-ish. So yeah, for the thicker one, that's it. Well, you know what, that's pretty much set. Alright, well, I thought I'd left a little more, but I guess I was kind of thinking of the thinner one. So I tell you what, we just hit the perfect size, 1765, for the thicker ones that we need to make, and I need to hit more of these than anything else. So let me put this one back in there so that I can put my bevel on the inside and bevel the outer edge, and then we'll start dropping more in here and finish them off. Try to get about that same tight. Get that bevel in there. Let's say 50 thou in, I've got clearance. And that should give me 0 on my edge. We'll go 10 thou, get a similar bevel to the other side, and we'll be good. Alright, so there is one finished and beveled. Let's drop the next one in there and check this repeatability. Alright, so let's see how we are for size. So about 175.5, but I've noticed they're not perfectly parallel all the way around. This one is about a thou different, thou and a half different. Let me go back to that first one. We're at about 176, 176.5. Yeah, we're about a thou different or so from repeatability, and that's well within the tolerance I need for these spacers. But let's see how we continue to do here. And let's see how we are in our third one here. Alright, we're just going a little smaller and a little smaller here. So I am nice and parallel on this one, but I'm about a full thou under. So maybe I'm pushing them in there a little bit more, maybe I'm cranking them up a little tighter. Let me adjust my DRO back out a good couple thou. and see what that does for me here. Save that one to make one of my thinner ones out of. Let's see if we can't get a little better accuracy out of this. All right, let me back my DRO off a couple thou here. All right, so there I got 77.5, 78, 78. So I backed it off 3 thou, and I got a little closer to how I did the second one, kind of at the 75. So I'd rather they were a hair thicker than thinner. I think that works for me. Okay, so I'm liking that nearly 78. We got that pretty parallel. So 77.5 to 78 around there. That's gonna work. Let's see if we can get a couple more coming out like that. All right, let's see how we did on this one. So now we're back to 76, 76, 76, 76. All right, I'm thinking some of that variability could be in my diameter a little bit too. Let me just check. So that one is 252 on diameter, and that one is 250 on diameter, 251 on diameter, and 251 on diameter. So all of those things are going to have a factor on using this depth stop on your collet. Is if the diameter is slightly different on your part, it's going to pull that collet into a different place. If you tighten it a little bit more, it's going to pull the whole collet into a different place. So there's a few different variables going on here that you have to deal with. So again, for me, if I'm within a couple thou on these spacers, that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's going to get tightened down. It can definitely adjust around a couple thou. The front end on the knife, it's tightening down onto a bushing, so it's going to always hold the right thickness at the pivot point. So again, if I'm within a couple thou on these spacers, so this is definitely going to work for me. If you needed to have better than a couple thou repeatability, you would definitely need to make sure that your outside diameter on your parts is more consistent, and if you had a collet closer or something that closed your collet system to the same tension every time, I think you would increase the repeatability. But for me, I've got to knock out 51 of these today, and as long as I'm within a couple thou, it's great. So I don't have to touch off on every part. I don't have to measure. This is going to work perfect for me. I'm definitely still really happy with my $29.99 investment in this, and hopefully this gives you some ideas on whether this is going to work for what you need for the tolerances that you're looking for in your shop. All right, well, let me knock out the rest of these. I only need to face off enough to make 5 knives right now. I've got 4 blades at one thickness, 3 at that thinner thickness, so I'll get those all finished. And then I've actually got another part that I need to face off, and it's going to be, from a bushing, it's going to be a more consistent outside diameter. So let's just do a little bit of a check on that, where we have the outside diameter, ground precision, and see if that gives us a little bit different consistency as we face off a couple of those. So let me finish off these spacers, and then we'll come back and we'll check out those bushings a little bit before we wrap up this video. All right, well, success. I got 12 done at this thickness. Actually ended up doing 15 because I forgot I was doing 3 at a different thickness. So good thing I made 3 extras, or hopefully this thickness is going to work out for one of those other knives that I'm making. Regardless, I got these 12 done, and overall variability I would say was about 2 thou with this Collet Stop. So again, combination of those factors of what's your starting outside diameter. If it's a larger diameter, it's going to leave it pushed out a little bit farther, so you're going to face off and end up with a thinner part. The smaller diameter, it's going to pull that in farther as you tighten it, so you're going to end up with a thicker part. And then also just how tight you tighten the collet closer, and just whether you had it pushed up tight against your piece as you're pulling that in there. So those are the 3 main variables that you're dealing with. And then also just on a DRO, most DROs on that long linear scale, I think they're only plus or minus half thou anyway is all that they're supposed to give you. So it's not quite the same accuracy, or maybe it's only plus or minus a thou. Not quite the same accuracy that they give you on turning a diameter. For these other 3, they're 14 thou difference in thickness. So I just left my 0 point the same. I just turned it all into 14 thou, and same thing, ended up with that same variability. 2 of them are almost identical, and I had one of them that was about 1.5 thou thicker than the other 2. So overall, I would say plus or minus about 2 thou is the overall tolerance that I would give this 5C Collet Stop, dealing with what we got so far. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a little bit on these bushings. These are a hardened and ground outside diameter, so that eliminates one of our variables. We should have a much better outside diameter consistency. We're still going to be grabbing onto a pretty short distance of it, so that's the other factor that I'm dealing with here, is I'm really holding on to a minimal amount inside that collet. I think the longer piece you have in there, the farther you're pushing it in there, that probably is going to help some of that consistency a little bit as well. But let's go ahead and get some of these in there. I've got to hacksaw these to length. If I part them off, I lose too much of my thickness. I could probably grind up a really thin little parting tool if I wanted to, but they hacksaw really fast. So I'm gonna hacksaw these in half and then face those off to the length that I need. So let's see if we get a little bit different accuracy out of that machined part. Check it out.
That's so quick and easy, hardly seems worth making up a little skinny parting tool just to knock that out. Sometimes low tech is the good way. And you couldn't see it on video, but I had a dustpan down there catching those, and also in case I were to slip with my hacksaw, I would make sure that I wasn't going to hit my lathe bed. So I had a little backup plan going on there. Clean up these chips, get some of these little shavings out of here, face a couple of these off the length. Alright, I just went there to set my depth. See what I'm getting for a reading here. Alright, right now we are at 191, 190 and a half, 90 and a half, 191. So alright, we'll call it 191. Now these, I'm going to lap these a little bit. So I only need them to come off of here within, just a couple of thou. I leave them about 6 thou too thick. And I will finish this off on a lapping table, a lapping board. Let me verify where I need to get to. All right, I want to get to about 161, 162. So that's 30 thou. Let's go 28 thou, just to be safe. All right, I'm going to go back to where I just zeroed that. And I'm going to go into 28 thou. I'm going to zero that. And this stuff is pretty hard. These are hardened little bushings, so I'm going to do that in a couple of cuts. Let's get this faced off. Alright, and I am at 62, 63, 63, 62, 62. Alright, so I took 28 from 91 down to 63, so from the high spot it took what it was supposed to. Again, I'm still grabbing such a thin little part of it that it's not holding them in there perfectly square, but that's what I need right there. These are going to be much more consistent outer diameter, so let's see how we do making parts here.
And that's kind of what I was getting before. You get that couple thou difference. So we're getting anywhere from 64, 65, 64, even 65 and a couple tenths there. So that's that same couple thou variability that I was getting before. Let me take just another skim across at that same setting and see if it takes a little bit or if I need to take just a little bit more off of there. That first pass I took across there, I set it at the exact same 0 setting. It didn't touch. I took a thou. It took some material off, so I took another thou. So now we're down to 61 and a half, 61 and a half, 62, 60, just under 62. So now I'm just under 62. It's a little more square. So again, just back to that, I seem to be able to get about 2 thou variability out of here between the accuracy on the DRO on that Z setting and just pushing it in here up against that collet, getting your collet tightened in there the exact same amount without a collet closer, about 2 thou variability, even with the outside diameter being a little more consistent. Seems about what I can get out of this thing, which for me is still going to work, but I don't know what the accuracy of your tools are. Check one more, and back to that 64, 64, 60, just under 64. So good parallel, back to that couple thou thicker again. All right, I've got one more at this thickness. Let's knock it out and see what we get. All right, this one's a little bit further out here. Now we got 2 thou bigger again. We got 66, 67, 67. So we were getting kind of 64s. All right, I'm gonna go take a couple thou off of this one. I don't want to sand that much off. So I'm gonna put it back in there and skim a couple more off. We'll assume that one didn't get put in there properly. So I'll go back to my 0 setting and we'll check that first and then adjust a couple thou off from there. Alright, so that actually took a little cut off at the same 0 setting I was before, so indicating that maybe just didn't put it in there quite right last time. Alright, so that's the same part at the same reading, and that takes me back down to the 65, almost 64. So if we count those last 3, they came out of there all within, mostly coming about 64 instead of 62, so a couple thou different. This very last one, it ended up being thicker than that again, so again, just looks like I didn't push it in there, didn't hold it in there right, tightening it. Put the same piece back in and it took a cut off. So definitely just some variability out of this. Alright, well I think we've made enough parts. Time to wrap up this video. Well, YouTube, that is a wrap on another video here in the BladesIIB shop. I hope you enjoyed as we took a deep dive into this 5C Collet Stop from Edge Technology. I like the design. I definitely like how this works. I like the stop rods that it comes with. We did a little modification on one to get a little bit more versatility out of it. But very versatile tool. I gotta be honest, I thought it was gonna be a little bit better accuracy, but I think a lot of that is user error. I ended up putting the same piece back in my collet again and got a different reading. So just a lot of variables when you're using a collet in how tight you put something, just what is that exact outside diameter on there. I'm sure this, every collet's going to have a little bit of run out. So there is a little bit of variability. The best I got is about 2 thou consistency in the length of my pieces, which again, for what I'm doing, works great. And for the numbers that I'm doing, hey, this definitely saved me a ton of time. It's delivering everything that I want it to do. But if you are looking for better than 2 thou repeatable accuracy, hey, you might want to change up some of those other variables. Either make sure you have a collet closer that's going to give you that consistent tightening on there.
Make sure your piece's outside diameter is turned a lot more consistency than what I was trying to hit with mine. You know, all of those may help a little bit. And when we turned down this one rod, we noticed that there was definitely some run out on the end of this tool. So maybe if I faced off the end of that stop a little bit in there, that may have helped some with the accuracy as well. You know, a couple different variables we could deal with if we really needed to tune this up. But what I was able to deliver with this is about 2 thou consistency in the length of my parts. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, drop a like, drop a comment. Love to hear what you think about this one. If this is the first video you found on the BladesIIB channel, I encourage you to get out there, check out some of the other videos. If you like the channel, would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and support us as we continue to grow here in 2022. For those of you returning, as always, really appreciate the support and appreciate you watching these videos. Until next time, I hope you're out in your own shop working on some projects of your own, making some chips of your own. I'll be here in the BladesIIB shop working on that next video, and right now getting all these knives together so I can take them to the Blade Show in Atlanta, June 3rd through the 5th. Table 21W, if you're going to be in Atlanta, come by, check us out. Otherwise, y'all take care.